Next question comes from Hancock at Call Me Biscuits on X. After week 2, can we get a top 5 resume ranking? I love it. I love it. So when I was an AP poll voter, I followed the advice of the great Doug Lemery. And Doug covers Ohio State. He does daily podcasts now on Ohio State. As an AP poll voter, Doug's philosophy was your preseason polls, your guesses, but then once the season starts, you're only ranking based on what has happened so far this season. And I think it's a really good way to do it. It's still not entirely foolproof because you have teams that don't play good games like Georgia and Michigan so far this year, where you can't really evaluate anything, but you're pretty sure they're really good. So where do you put them? But I'm going to do a pure resume ranking. And so you're going to see this and you're going to go, well, this is dumb. This was made clearly to piss me off. No, I am ranking based on what has happened this season. And as you'll see, because of the way teams have played their game so far, it's almost impossible. And so it's destined to be wrong. Like if you go back in week 12 and look at this, you're going to laugh at it. But I actually think it's a pretty good way to do it because you go as the teams go. You move people up as they play better. You move them down as they play worse. You eliminate assumptions. So I don't think it's a bad way to vote. I don't think it's a bad way to rank teams. So let's start at number 5. And I'll say also under consideration that I didn't put in the top 5, Washington State. They won against Colorado State resoundingly. Then they beat Wisconsin at home. I think that's a pretty good couple of wins there for Washington State. Colorado, they just missed it. If we knew what TCU was going to be, I think that I'd probably have them in there. I'm not sure how good Nebraska is going to be either, but Colorado does have 2 Power 5 wins right now. So it's entirely possible that they are one of the best 5 so far, but I'm just not sure where TCU's at. Number 5, I have Miami, and I realize that is based almost entirely on the Texas A&M game. The Miami of Ohio win was nice, but based on this game against Texas A&M, where we know they have talent, where we've seen those same players get pressure on quarterbacks, and then Miami's new look offensive line keeping them from getting pressure on Tyler Van Dyke, it helps to have that context. And so you feel like you can say that Miami is genuinely better. Now we need to see this happen a few more times. And that's the tricky part with all these, because for the most part, they've won one game against a really good opponent, but they haven't played anybody else thus far that's going to challenge them. So it's hard to tell. Number 4, I've got Duke. Say what you will about Clemson, say what you will about Dabo Swinney and the situation that he finds himself in, not being willing to use the transfer portal and the roster not looking like it used to. But that's still a roster full of blue chip recruits. That's still a roster with a bunch of NFL players on it. And Mike Elko's Duke team manhandled Clemson, manhandled them. So I'm going to put them here for now. Are they going to stay here? No, probably not. Notre Dame's coming to town in a few weeks. You know, if they beat them, then sure. But for now, Duke is looking very good. Number 3, speaking of teams that played in the Research Triangle over the weekend, and speaking of Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish went into NC State, game delayed almost 3 hours because of lightning basically after the first quarter, and then came out and just put the gas pedal down. Audric Estime, an 80-yard touchdown run right off the bat, and then you saw them forcing turnovers and then turning those turnovers into points. And so Notre Dame looks great so far. 3 wins for Notre Dame, but Navy and Tennessee State, again, didn't really tell us anything. But NC State, I feel like that did tell us something. So putting them there. Number 2, Florida State. Obviously, that win against LSU, one of the best wins in the country so far this season. We know LSU has a talented roster. This is a similar team to the one that won the SEC West last year. We don't know how good it will be ultimately, but I got a feeling this win will still look good no matter what. And then Florida State against Southern Miss did the thing that you want to see a team that is supposed to be making the next step, that is moving forward in its evolution do, and that is annihilate the overmatched opponent. You've seen some teams play with their food over the first couple of weeks. Florida State didn't do that with Southern Miss. I'm sure you've seen the photo of Keon Coleman hurdling the defender. Although you probably should have learned not to hurdle Keon watching your own defense play against LSU, and poor Jaden Daniels just got planted in the ground. But that was the highlight of a game where Florida State played a ton of players, played a lot of young players, and just looked great in general. Number one. Now, this one's interesting because the team that was supposed to be the cream puff that they beat in the first game actually helped them out by doing something in week 2, while this team I'm talking about was going, on the road and getting probably the biggest win of the season so far. Number one is Texas. The Longhorns went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. They looked better on both lines of scrimmage than Alabama, which says they would be better on both lines of scrimmage than probably 95% of the teams in the country, 99% of the teams in the country. And so that was incredibly impressive. Also helping Texas's case, Rice beating Houston in double overtime. Texas played Rice that first week. That was supposed to be an easy win for Texas, and it was after halftime, basically. But Rice then turning around and beating a Big 12 team, even though Houston hasn't actually played a Big 12 game yet, that just adds to Texas's resume. That helps. So right now, Texas number one. And I know what you're saying, Andy. You're overhyping Texas again. You guys do this all the time. But they did just go on the road and beat Alabama. Can we be forgiven this once? Is that okay? Do I think Texas is going to be the number one team in the country? Are they going to win the national title? I don't necessarily think so, but I think they can compete for it. I think they can compete for a playoff berth. What we saw on the line of scrimmage on Saturday works anywhere, works against anybody. The question for Texas is, can they win the games they're supposed to win? Can they be that hyped up, excited when they have to play pretty good Big 12 teams that can beat them on the right day? That's the tricky part. That's what Texas has to overcome. But I thought they were very well prepared for Alabama. There's a good chance they'll be prepared the rest of the way. So this is going to be fun to watch because Texas now has all these expectations. They will be told how great they are. In the past few years, Texas players have been told how great they are until the season starts, and then they're told how bad they are. They're not getting that now. They are getting told you are awesome, you're the best thing since sliced bread, and now they have to learn to deal with that too. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.